אנחנו נצא לדרך. אמנם יש נוכחות נמוכה היום, אבל אנחנו נעשה כמיטב יכולתנו. הריסון עדיין יעביר את ההרצאה שלו על קבוצות מיוחדות, על Special Teams. כמובן ההרצאה הזאת מוקלטת. Harrison, you want to take over?
Sure.
You can start. Whoever is going to join in, I'm going to put him in.
Great.
Good.
First off, I want to thank you guys. It's Mother's Day here today. So, wishing you guys mothers a happy Mother's Day and your wives a happy Mother's Day if you guys have kids, and thank them too, because they're, they support you guys doing football stuff, and that's important. And I know that if it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't have gone to Israel and coached, and she's probably my biggest supporter. So happy Mother's Day. And so we'll get started on the special team stuff. I find that special teams especially is a neglected aspect of the game, not only in times there, but definitely here as well. You can really see a lot about how a team practices and what their philosophy is when based off their special teams during the game and what they do in practice. The stuff that I'm going to show you guys, part of it was kind of our practice schedule in Israel and how we incorporated special teams, but what you guys can also do on top of it. And to show the importance, I think that when you guys don't make it a big deal as coaches, then it's not a big deal to the players. And we want to eliminate, a lot of that scrambling around. We always said that our number one rule on special teams was 100% substitution. And when you have to burn timeouts on not enough guys on the field, or, whether it's on punt or punt block return, you have too many and it's just, a mess. These are things that you need to practice and you need to work into your practice schedule. So I'm going to kind of show you our schedule, different ways that we would break it down, a couple of drills, and, kind of go from there. So the first thing, all right, was, schedule. We only have obviously a short amount of time in Israel. So, you hope to get 2 practices in a week. We started at 8:30 and we would go till right about 11. You can kind of obviously manipulate the times differently depending on, your practice schedule. So right after stretch, the first thing we got into was P80 Field Goal. You guys can't expect the players to be able to do something without practicing it, especially every day. A lot of the skills on offense and defense, we try to specify them, but a lot of these skills are learned in special teams, whether it's punt, coming to balance and making a tackle, kickoff, especially learning different body positions. People, they talk about 2 types of body positions: speed, where we're vertical and we're running, and then a power position where we have bend and we're making tackles. So we need to work skills every practice. So we get P80 field goal every time. You want to know why you don't have a P80 field goal block? Because you don't practice it. So input 1, it can be 1 block, and then run that block every single practice. So when you get into that game scenario, you know what? Somebody does kick. When we were there, guess what? We kicked. I know everybody doesn't, but you're going to get into a game that somebody's going to kick the ball and you want to have a block. All right. And teach the guys the rules when you block it, when it crosses the line of scrimmage or doesn't cross the line of scrimmage, what happens? So these are, situational football that people talk about. A lot of these situations happen in special teams and you guys need to understand them. Right after we got into P80 field goal, we went into what we called our specials period. So, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Our O linemen were rarely in special teams, so they went and did individual during this time. So on Mondays, we would alternate every week, and I'll break them down, but we would go punt 1 week and then punt block return the next week. So we would alternate, depending on the week. Obviously in the States where we practice, 4 times, Monday would be our punt day and Tuesday would be our punt block return day. But that's kind of how we would break it up there. And then, depending on how you see fit to work different situations, even when you're down here, during this team period, you can just yell, hey, punt, 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 just to make sure that the guys are paying attention, or, PAT field goal. We're kicking a PAT field goal. I think sometimes the best thing in practice, and I wasn't great at it, I can admit. Sometimes I stuck to the schedule so much that I didn't have that sudden change that happens in football a lot, where all of a sudden, you know what, the defense, you just got off the field, you made a great play, the offense goes out there, and what happens the next play? They throw an interception. So that's sudden change, and you have to be able to react, and that happens in special teams too. You just need to be ready, hey, the offense gets on the field, they score a touchdown in one play. PAT field goal needs to be ready. And now everybody's on the sideline scrambling around, and it's crazy. So you need to work these situations so the guys understand that anything can happen during the game, and you're not chasing somebody down in the parking lot. Okay? On Thursday, all right, sometimes for us it tended to be a shorter practice or a lighter practice in terms of we might not be tackling all the time. We'd be tagging or thud. So we would, again, do our PAT field goal, got right into it. All right, every practice, it's so important to be 100% on PAT. We'd say kicking for points, because those points add up over a game and over a season. So we needed to be 100%. And I'd stand right next to the guy as he's kicking, It was that important. And then, again, we get into our specials period. I know it says 15 minutes here. It could be 20. Again, manipulate it. And we would go kickoff one week and kickoff return the next week. Again, you guys, you have a shortened time. I'm not saying this is the perfect practice schedule, but we try to get a lot of stuff in a short week. So we would have to alternate stuff. I would say the next, most important thing is a lot of times, whether you're the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, really the offensive coordinator, you might be coaching quarterbacks during this period. You need to find a strong coach to coach special teams. When I was there, I was lucky. I had David Ginsburg for a couple of years, and he did a great job with those guys. I met with him before the season and throughout the season and told him stuff that I wanted to see. I broke it down, and we met on it. And if he had questions, he'd ask me. If I had questions, I'd ask him. But he did a great job with those guys, and I could trust him, during the game. And it makes your job easier at times worrying about other aspects. I wanted to be involved with special teams, and I was, but I also, wanted to coach quarterbacks. So you need to find a guy there that can get done what you need, to accomplish as a team. So that was, kind of our schedule and how we did things. Now I'm going to get into, our scout. And, again, film, it's so important to watch film. And I think sometimes when you guys get to the special teams plays, at times, guys just skip over it. It happens here too. It's just not looked at as an important, aspect of the game. But the best teams have great special teams. We talk in the NFL all the time about the Patriots and, how great they are on offense and defense. And they are, but they are just as good, maybe even better in special teams. Okay. And that's a really important aspect. So when we're watching film, again, we were breaking down what these teams are doing. Okay. Breaking it down to see if anything might not meet what was going on. So on punt, who's the punter? How many personal protectors do they have? What's their formation? When I say the launch point, where is he kicking the ball? Okay, he might catch the ball at 13, but as he takes his 2 steps, the launch point is where's the ball coming off his foot. So if we're working a block that week on punt block return, I need to tell the guys, we don't want to run 7 yards, because if we run 7 yards, we're going to run right into the kicker. So the block point that week is at 5 yards, and those guys should be able to, to kind of answer that. Hey, the block point's at 5. Okay, good, because it's 2 yards in front of the launch point. The distance. Why is that? Why is?
A lot of places have changed their hours and services.
That's my Google.
So you might want to check with them.
So why is the distance important? Because we need to set the returners. You can't just put the returner standing anywhere. You should know, hey, during the, hey, this guy punted the ball, on average 25 yards from the line of scrimmage. So now we know where to line the guy up. Did they have any fakes? Do we need to be alert of any fakes and any special notes? That's just on punt. And it might seem very time intensive, and it is, but this aspect is important. All right. Punt block return, what did they do? A lot of times, especially there, a lot of people they just keep their defense on the field and they almost play a base defense. But sometimes, what they do line up and try to bring some sort of block. So you need to be alert, what they're bringing and try to work it. We've always liked to overload our punt during practice. So we wanted our guys to block more than they're going to bring in a game. So once we got into the game, it seemed easier because there was actually an even number of guys. Kickoff, same thing, very similar to punt. Who was the kicker? What was their alignment? Were they 5x5? Were they 6x4? Was the ball pushing towards were they trying to kick the ball to our right or to our left? These things are important to set up your return. You see, again, I have start, direction. What kind of kick was it? Sometimes it's a deep kick. Sometimes it's a high lob. Sometimes it's a squib. What was the distance? Where did it land? This is really getting detailed with it. But again, when we get into that week, when we're showing the other team's kickoff, this is what they like to do. So when we get into the game, it's not some huge surprise that the ball is kicked a certain way. Did they onside kick at all? If they did, what was it like? There's certain teams there that, we all know that they like to onside kick a lot of the time. Well, if you're working your kickoff return that week, don't practice a lot of deep kicks because it's a waste of time. You should just practice, showing onside kicks and just, work that week. Make it fit just like you would on offense or defense. If you were going to see, a 3-4 that week on defense, you're not going to show them a 4-3. It's going to be the same thing on special teams. And then again, kickoff return, what was their scheme? Where did they line their guys up and where did they like to return the ball? And is there any, cracks, personnel wise? Was there things that they like to do that maybe we can exploit on kickoff and gain field, yardage? So again, this is just a breakdown of one team, for that week, whether it's you as maybe a defensive coordinator and doing special teams or your special teams coordinator. This is important, and these things all need to be on the same page and then transmitted to the players. Because it doesn't matter if you know that the launch point is at 7 yards if your players have no idea. I can go out there and spit out X, Y, Z. Yeah, they're deep this and high lob that. Well, if the players don't know, what does it matter? They're the ones out there making plays. You're just on the sideline. So that's kind of a breakdown how we did it. And then importantly, again, having a call sheet. Your special teams coordinator, I always found it amazing that I would see some special teams guys out there and they want to have a call sheet. Like they could just memorize everything. And if they say they can, they're lying. They're full of it because there's so many situations that happen. It's just a good reminder. I always knew inside the 20-yard line on punt, we were going to call tight. But I wanted to confirm it during the game. I wanted to make sure, just like the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator needs to know down and distance, I needed to know location of the ball and what were our ideas that week. What were we going to call in certain situations? Because it's a lot of stuff happening at once. So again, I just thought, this was my kind of call sheet that I made. There, you can make one however you want to, but this just, this helped me a lot when I did special teams 2 years ago. I thought that this was, it helped me quite a bit during the games. So now kind of going back to, schedule during the week. So when I showed you guys that practice schedule earlier, that was kind of the allotted time, you have in practice where you're structured. I think a really underutilized thing is pre-practice. And what do I mean by that? We've all been out there, before practice starts. And you got like O-linemen trying to run routes and guys just chucking the ball all over the place and it looks like a mess. Well, if those guys get there earlier, especially if they're your special teams guys, give them a routine because these reps, they're only going to make them better. If you think that the long snappers just working their snaps during practice the punters, holders, and kickers working their craft during practice is enough. It's not, especially 2 times a week. It's not. So steal a little bit of time before practice. Even, you can ask those guys and be understanding, but hey, man, if you can get here, 10 minutes before practice starts, don't push the subject too much. Don't be like, you need to be in full dress and da-da-da-da-da. Be understanding and say, hey, man, just, if you just have your uppers on or just your helmet, can you get some extra work in? Sometimes when our kicker, one year was Tim, Tim would get there a little early and he'd start working some kickoffs and some PATs or he'd work after practice. All right. But he was just getting extra reps. And the snap, we had Mike Ripstein was our long snapper. So sometimes he couldn't get the practice early, but after practice, he would get extra work in. That is the stuff that adds up, guys. When coach isn't looking and coach isn't on top of everything, but are your players motivated enough to get a little bit of work done either before practice or post practice, and organize it and just tell them, hey, I'm not going to be watching you and on top of you about stuff, but if you do get there early or you stay late, this is just the stuff you need to work. And it's just so important, and it really adds up. So again, here's like a little pre-practice kind of setup that I had, and I broke it up for those guys. So we had the kickers and long snappers, returners, all right, personal protectors if they were out there early, but really those long snappers, these guys are really important. Okay. The returners, we know that in Israel, most people don't grow up, playing catch. Obviously soccer is really big. So catching is not maybe like a real natural, movement there. So the more reps that they can get, the better. Have those guys catch the ball, especially your returners. Catch the ball, catch the ball, catch the ball. I put a jugs machine. Obviously, you don't have one there. So just feed them like fly balls. Just, have somebody, if they're with their partner, just have them with their partner. Feed them fly balls. And then again, snap and punt. Okay. And now once we get into the week, all right, once we get into the practice schedule, I had a specials period there. When I talk about specials, okay, that doesn't mean that for 20 minutes we line up in the same punt, okay, and just do it over and over and over and over, because that's pretty damn boring, okay? And when it's like that, it just becomes mundane and guys just kind of lose focus. So just like we talked about a couple of weeks ago with the O-lineman, the O-lineman, we break into individual, then we do small group, then we do big group. It's the same thing with special teams, guys. All your coaching is going to translate over, okay? Same with the special teams. We'll do one-on-ones, okay, for blocking, and then we'll get into a mini group where it's 3 guys at a time, and then the whole group is together, and you need to organize it as such. So again, I have different stations, on kickoff. This is what these guys are doing this week. These are the drills we have. This is the number. These are the guys. This is the drills, and this is how we want to set it up. Again, look, each station's 3 minutes. So we're kind of flying through it. So I'll kind of show you an example, okay? And this guy, I like this. There's a lot of resources, online for you guys to use. And some of them, are really good, and you don't have to do it exactly, all right, the way that they're doing it. But
Harrison, are we supposed to see the...
You see the YouTube or no?
No, we're watching the Excel sheet.
Oh, how do I bring it up? Sharing is pause. Bring your shared window to the front. Oops. All right, let me close this. All right, so you see that one, right? Sorry.
No, you've got... Oh, no, it might work.
Okay, hold on. Let me go to desktop. Sorry about that, fellas. All right, can you guys see YouTube?
Yes, now we can see.
Okay, so again, this is like a kickoff circuit that those guys did. So there's 5 stations here. I bet you his head coach probably gives him maybe 20 minutes to get through this.
Can you make
Okay.
it a full screen so everybody?
Yep. So he's giving him 20 minutes, all right, to get through these different drills. And again, you might like the drills that he's using or not like the drills. That's fine. You know, there's some stuff that he had on there that I did like, that I was like, hey, yeah, you know what, we could utilize this maybe. Or there's stuff on there that I'm like, maybe I don't want to use it. You know, again, this was them just working, splitting a double team. Okay, how they were doing it. And again, a lot of their stuff that they're doing, they're limiting the contact. They have bags or some sort of shield. You can use pillows from a couch. I don't really care. Okay, but just working, splitting the double team. You know, again, limited contact. They're not killing each other and blowing each other up. A lot of times, guys, our players, especially as the season wears on, they're really worn out. They're tired. Okay, well, part of that is what you guys are doing in practice, because you're just beating the hell out of them. And then by game 10, you have like 10 guys left. You can't go full live all the time. And in special teams, this is a good time to work technique without just killing the crap out of each other. All right. This was, they called it a hard fit. All right. So this was them on kickoff, getting fit up with a blocker, okay, and working to get off the double team and make a tackle. Again, they're going to stay in that for about 3 minutes. This was their tackling, okay? Talking about coming to balance, because especially on kickoff, you guys have guys flying down there like full speed, and then they just run right by guys or they slide by guys. So we don't say breakdown. We tell those guys to come to balance, because if they're balanced, you see how these guys have good bend. Now they can change direction either way. When they're just really like this guy, you see how high he is? It's going to be very hard for him to change direction and come make a tackle. And that was that speed and power we talked about. So that closing distance, he's in a speed position. Now here, he's got good bend. That's a power position. Now he can change direction and come fit up and make a tackle. And that was an avoid drill. So again, that was, all right, just an example of a circuit that they would go through. It doesn't have to be 5 stations. It could be, since, you know, we're teaching maybe sometimes at a slower tempo or teaching new skills, it could be 3 stations at 5 minutes. Okay. But that's a lot better than one drill at 15 minutes, because at the end, there's just a lot of standing around, and you want to eliminate the standing around, because then what happens when they're standing around? There's a lot of chit chat and guys get distracted, or they get bored, and then they say, oh, practice was slow, I didn't do anything, whatever. So eliminate that. And that's on you. It's hard, but you just, you know, find a way to organize it that way. Again, sorry, I didn't realize you guys didn't see this earlier. Okay. But this was the pre-practice thing that I was talking about. You could also do it post-practice for those guys. Tell them, hey, you know, these guys just stay an extra 5-10 minutes. And eventually they're going to do it on their own. Okay. They really will. Like the guys that really want to get better and they really understand the importance of it, they'll do it. You know, we didn't one day have a, you know, a come to Jesus meeting and say, guys, special teams is just the most important thing. And you know what? We practiced it every day, and those guys realized that it was important. Okay. And again, the guys I talked about earlier, Tim, Mike Ribstein, all these guys, they realized it was important because we were doing it every day. And then they took ownership of their craft, and they wanted to be better, and they wanted to do it the right way. So when their number was called, they were ready to go. Mike, we'd be on the 50-yard line, and Mike was asking me to kick field goals because he just wanted to snap the ball. You know, but I love that because he was excited and he took his craft really seriously. So again, you know, I can kind of send you that, you know, and just different stations. And if you have questions about it, you know, why we would do certain things a certain way, all right, go ahead. No worries. Kind of want to get over to this. Again, talking about the importance of each segment. So we call them a special unit. You know, I think a nice thing about special teams is each unit is really individual, and give those guys ownership. You know, you might call it kickoff, but you should bring them to a certain point on the field and get a breakdown before every time you go out there. Every time, to make sure that we have 11. We always talk about special teams. Okay, number one is substitution. On kickoff, hopefully, you just scored a touchdown. That's great. You even made a PAT, even better. All right, so you have 7 points on the board, and you're going to kick the ball off. Don't just have them go out there like a big mess, okay? And then all of a sudden, what happens? You guys have seen it. There's like 9 guys on the field, and then you're scrambling around the sideline trying to find 10. Oh, crap, no, we only have 10. Now we need to find 11. Don't do it like that. Have those guys at a meeting place, okay, whether it's the minus 35 or wherever you decide, okay, have the 11 guys huddle up, okay, and then from there, okay, get a breakdown. And then that breakdown, let it be theirs. Give them ownership of things. Our kids used to call it the hit squad. So we get a breakdown on hit squad on 3. But those guys would get the call, whatever call you were going to give them on kickoff, whether it's right, left, middle, whatever you want to call it. All right. And then their unit and break from there. Okay. I find it really important that, some guys are like real big into minimizing everything. All right. And I think it's important to keep your goals to a minimum. In the philosophy, you can just read it with those guys one time. They're going to remember something. They don't need to remember all of this. Okay. But they need to put it into practice. What do I mean by that? They need to kind of understand these are the things that we want to do to be good at it. All right. I think the more that your players understand, the better you are. Some guys are just real, like, it doesn't matter. They're just going to figure out and they're just going to do it. And I just don't believe in that. I've never been around my players, at least, that they just kind of went out there and they just kind of did it and they were successful. But the guys that, really did it and asked me questions, they ended up being, making more plays. And in turn, that helped our team. So again, I just had different goals that I've laid out for each unit. And then, maybe some rules to know or philosophy, and then our calls. And again, the whole team doesn't need to know every single one, okay? Because you might have certain guys on kickoff and kickoff return, punt block return, right? But it's just important, hey, have a quick meeting with those guys, 15, 20 minutes. I think that, that's a big thing that I've been doing with, my group here is just trying to meet with, I met with the big guys. We went over P80 Field Goal. And then I just showed them 2 or 3 clips of our P80 Field Goal from last year. So they understood the importance of it. A lot of times you guys, people see special teams and they think it's a playoff. And it's actually really the opposite. I really believe if you can't start on a special teams, then you can't start on offense or defense. And guys don't take plays off on special teams. If they're tired, okay, they are off on offense or defense. And you guys have all, I'm sure, as coaches, gone through it where all of a sudden you're on punt or whatever it is, and he's like, Coach, you got to take me out. But then the second you get to offense or defense, he's magically better to return. Bull crap. Okay? He will take a play off on offense or defense and will be in on special teams. Okay? Because not only does it affect the actual unit, but then what happens to you on the sideline? You're scrambling around trying to find guys. Okay? Special teams, there's way too many moving parts. Okay? And you're bringing guys from offense and defense onto special teams. So
מה קרה? רק אצלי הייתה תקלה? I guess...
yeah, it kicked me off at special teams.
Yeah, me too. So I think we're good.
Are we good? Sorry about that, fellas.
I think it was my Wi-Fi. because it
Okay.
kicked everybody out, and I think everybody's back. I don't know, maybe the Zoom had a problem. So go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. So again, don't let those guys just, kind of take off and then say, yeah, I'm good for offense or defense. It doesn't work like that. And then I think when you stress things like that, they also, again, realize the importance of special teams. Okay, because you're showing that it's important. You're not saying, yeah, it's okay. You know what? You're tired. Just take a play off right now. And then on offense, yeah, you'll be good. Just get right back in. Nah, it doesn't work like that. At least it didn't work like that for us. And again, that stressed the importance of it. I could kind of go on and on about this, but before I do, do you guys have any, questions about, maybe what we did or, what you want to see or, again, just questions. I'm here for you guys as a resource. Again, I can just go on and on about it.
אם למישהו יש שאלות, אפשר גם לפתוח מיקרופון, אנחנו להרבה אנשים, אבל here you go in the chat, someone else.
Oh, this is in Hebrew, so you're going to have to translate.
Do you want to have your best players on your special teams?
Yeah, absolutely.
Players?
And that's a really good question, because sometimes a lot of those guys, they'll kind of put quote unquote backups in the special teams. Don't believe in it. Your best guys definitely need to be out there. I think that also sets a tone that special teams, like, you're not good enough for it or better than that. I think sometimes they're like, I'm too good to be. I'm like, the defensive star, offensive star, and I'm too good to be on special teams. That's bullshit. Okay? Your best players are out there. That sets the tone. It sets the example. And you know what? If your guys who might not be as good on offense or defense, but they've earned a spot on special teams, yeah, you're right. Work them in there and then have them on special teams. But I think it's it's definitely a balance. But if guys have earned their spot on there, yes, absolutely. And that creates that importance around it, where it's not just looked at as a minimal part of the team or practice. 1 out of 6 plays is a special teams play. 1 out of 6. That's how important it is, and it happens throughout a game. That was a big thing we used to look at on the stat sheet when I get it at the end of the game was, what was our net punt? How many return yards did the other team have? What was their starting field position? Because these things add up, whether it's high school ball, really high school ball or, football there at times. Most teams aren't going to drive, 7 or 8 plays and go down in there and score. How do most teams score? On big plays. Well, limit those opportunities and make them drive longer. When one team starts on their -20 and another team starts at midfield all game, well, they have a better chance of scoring. It's a percentage game, and they have a shorter way to go. So even if they get a big play, but they're on the -20, maybe you can make a tackle and live to play another down. And a lot of that starts on special teams. If you're just kicking the ball out of bounds or giving up a lot of return yards, whatever it is, or your punter's just, shanking the ball all over the place, well, then now their offense is going to start with better field position. So yeah, that's a good question, but definitely the better guys are on there. Yeah, another one.
Yeah. How familiar are you with the whole new punt thing that they've been doing the last, 5, 10, 15 years? When they spread everybody out.
Yeah, we block kicks when guys do that.
Yeah, I figured. How do people get away with that? Like, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, this looks new. It looks, interesting, but
I think a lot of it is just to create confusion, and you have to also realize who's eligible and not eligible. They can spread you all out, but if those guys are covered up, on punt, at least, they're not eligible, those inside guys. So, you have to just communicate who's on and who's off. And that was something that, again, we would break down and film during the week. We played somebody here that lined up like that. And most teams would really just spread out and just try to run with those guys. But we just covered the eligible guys and still condensed down our punt block return. And they didn't have enough guys to block our block. And then we just went in there and blocked a kick. So, that's a big part of it. And I think you can kind of manipulate your formation a little bit as long as it fits your rules. We don't have both places that I've coached, we don't have a crazy, like really spread guys out kind of deal. We either line up like in a tight, like the NFL look, or we'll line up in more like that college look with the 3 personal protectors and kind of do it like that. I see benefits to both. Again, it's kind of what your preference is and what's maybe worked better for you. But the whole like really spreading guys out, that's not my huge flavor.
I hear that. Thanks, man.
Yep. Anything else?
If you have something to add, Harrison, just go ahead if you want to add.
Yeah, again, kind of like I just talked about with you guys earlier, work it into your schedule, all right, and show those guys the importance of special teams. I think when you stress it and you make it a big part of your, practice and your team philosophy, those guys buy into it. And in turn, you become better football players because your skills that you learn in special teams translate over, tackling in space, whether it's on punt or kickoff. Well, you do that on defense. So even though you might be in a special teams period, okay, those things are translating over. Same on punt. Now we're blocking guys. Well, if those guys at times are offensive players, that blocking skill is going to translate over to their blocking on offense. I really think that it's an undervalued, aspect of the game. And it does take a lot of, time and effort to really sit, break down what you want to do and make it a part of your practice. But you guys can do that. And I think, obviously the guys that are on this meeting, especially, develop that with your team, because then it will develop the football there. And that's a really, that's an important aspect, whether it's the high school, the adults, or, at higher levels when they're playing, because it will just translate all the way through. Really it's very important with the high school kids, especially because when they get, hopefully they stick through and they'll play with the adults, and then special teams won't be looked at as this like a hugely foreign concept. You can't practice it the day before and then just be like, yeah, we're going to go out there and practice special teams. It doesn't work like that. So again, that's really, like my philosophy and some of the things that we did on special teams. If you guys, want any of the stuff that I have or have questions about it, again, just shoot and ask me. And, I'm here as a resource for you guys, hopefully. And a lot of times I learn a lot of stuff from you guys too. And so I appreciate our conversations.
יש עוד שאלות? אם לא? אוקיי, הריסון, thank you so much. חבר'ה, תודה רבה. אני רואה שיש פשוט פחות אנשים שהתחברו, אולי בגלל שאנשים חוזרים לעבודה, אולי אנחנו נזיז חלק מההרצאות לשעה יותר מאוחרת. אנחנו עובדים על קביעת לוז החדש, אז אני רוצה להודות לכולם. תודה רבה, הריסון, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it again.
Next time. Yeah.
Sounds good.